Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are getting dangerously close to spring football. I was just looking and it's like, oh boy, we're like, 10 days away, something like that, give or take. It is 11 days away. It is getting here pretty quick. It feels like normally the January, the dead period between the end of the season and the start of spring ball, it's like, well, you get a couple videos of winter workouts and that's about it. This has been about as lively a dead period as I can remember. And it's like, oh, well, how about that? We just constantly had news all the way through till the start of spring ball. I'll take it.
Yeah, January was crazy. I went through and put a list together of the entire month. We did a morning show after like the first 3 weeks, and it was loaded. The last week was pretty loaded as well. The last 3 days, I think Ryan Day finally was like, enough. I'm just going to take a few days off. But then February, you're still waiting for the coaching thing, and Chip Kelly happens, Bill O'Brien happens. So yeah, it has been a solid winter, and it always just, spring football just hits you like right away, even though you're kind of waiting for it, planning content to bridge the gap. And it's like, then it always gets to be this time, and I'm like trying to get it all done before spring actually starts. And it will be here Tuesday, March 5th. We will have practice Tuesday and Thursday. Then they're a week off. Then what is it? Tuesday, is it Monday, Wednesday, Fridays? Or no, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the next about a month then as they go through that schedule. And then, we don't know exactly when we will be talking to everybody. Like we have not gotten our spring media coverage calendar yet. I would expect that another 10 days or so, a week or so, because, we don't want to get information too quickly around here. Right? We don't want to be able to plan too much, but we'll get it when we get it, and we'll be happy to have it.
Yeah, they got to keep us on our toes. If we know everything, it makes things a little too easy. Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, the first week. So that's the 5th and the 7th. Then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, the week of the 19th and the 26th. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the week of April 1st and 8th. And then the spring game on the 13th. So you got Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday that last week. So gonna be plenty to talk about. And hopefully we get to see as much of it as we can, because there's a lot of interesting stuff to look at and keep track of this spring.
And there is nothing that we could learn this spring that would possibly harm the football team in terms of something that would cost them games in the fall. So you might as well let us see everything that that we could possibly see. That's my thought.
What exactly are you working on in the first 2 weeks of spring ball that is going to be a state secret by the time you play anyone with a pulse? Like, no disrespect to the Akron Zips, but, gestures vaguely towards literally the entire history of the Akron Zips. I just heard, Tony, the last time an Akron Zips coach left for a reason other than being fired was what year?
Would that have been, is that Lee Owens? Was it like 1926?
I think it was 1973, and that guy just retired, and it was like, well, his record wasn't very good, and he, had been there a while, so he might have been, retiring rather than. So yeah, it is. I think they'll probably be okay against Akron, even if we get to watch like entire practices the second week of spring.
Wow, you are the bold prediction there, Tom. The boldest prediction of the spring. Tom says we'll get to watch actual full practices past the first week of spring. Now, it's not unheard of. We do get the student appreciation practice, which shouldn't count, but we'll have to, you take what you can get.
Just to be clear here, I didn't say we were going to. I said if we did, they would probably still beat Akron. It sounds like the same thing, but it's not quite the same.
Although if they open up every spring practice and then they lose to Akron, we are being shut down for the rest of spring and for the rest of history. No more spring practices because you ruined the Akron game. But we'll see. We'll see what we get. We will let you guys know as soon as we know what we're doing and what to expect and where to find all this coverage. You would find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com, of course, and there's going to be a ton of stuff behind the paywall and the message board there as well. So now would be a great time to join up. Tom, we're almost done with our spring positional previews. Today we're talking corners and safeties, which can do the entire secondary. Probably spend about 45 minutes talking about Sonny Styles and just everything we see. But I want to start off with corners because to me, this is the deepest group of cornerbacks, not even including Jordan Hancock, for the Buckeyes since 2016 when you had Gary Conley, Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore rotating. Damon Arnett, redshirt freshman at that time, couldn't quite get in there. But I view Germain Matthews as good enough to start. I'm not going to call him a starter, but I have the confidence in him that I would have in a starter. Obviously, Denzel Burke, Davis and Igbinosun are both NFL guys. So, like, just those three. And then if one of them went down, I'm going to assume Jordan Hancock would move in over there. So that I kind of count him into that depth as well. To me, that's pretty good group. Now, there were 4 first-rounders in 2016, so I don't know if that's the case with this group. It probably is not. I'm just going to assume that it's not because that's so rare. But I would put this ahead of the like 2019 with Okudah. Remember, Shaun Wade was a kind of a slot safety at that point. So I really like this group. And I also threw it into the list in 1996 with Sean Springs and Ty Howard and Antoine Winfield as your nickel and Ahmed Plummer as the redshirt freshman who doesn't really get to play a bunch, but he had 3 first-rounders there, and then Ty Howard, I believe, was a 2nd or 4th rounder. But I think this group is right up there with them.
It feels like, we're counting nickels in there in some of those previous years, so I feel like we got to throw Jordan Hancock in this mix. If we're counting nickels before, I feel like we should count them now. But even if it's just Denzel Burke and Davis Igbinosun and Germain Matthews, you've got the promising redshirt freshman. You've got Calvin Simpson-Hunt in there. Calvin Simpson-Hunt, someone who I think is right near the top of the list of guys who, he's not starting this year, I don't think, but he's near the top of the list of guys. I'm most interested to see how much he progresses from practice 1 to practice 15 and from the end of last season to now. How much has he improved and grown there? Because he was one of those guys you just kind of kept hearing about towards the end of the season, and you saw him a little bit more. So let's see what it looks like now. Lorenzo Styles Jr., he is, he really didn't play last year except on special teams. He was a gunner on punts last year, but that was it. And so what does he look like this year? Because he basically was starting from zero, both in terms of the program he's with and also the position he is, having played wide receiver for Notre Dame and transferred, moved over to corner for like a couple practices before transferring to Ohio State last spring. There's just, it feels like you've got, with the 3 outside corners we mentioned, plus Jordan Hancock, plus some intriguing names behind them, and that doesn't even get into Aaron Scott, Bryce West, who are, probably like a year away from really being in this conversation, but, more just very, very talented top 100 players. Like this is a really, really deep, talented room. And, you have a question in here. How many of these guys would you feel comfortable playing right now? And I think for sure I would go in with Burke, Igbinosun, Hancock if we're counting him, and Germain Matthews. And I'm kind of prepared to come out of spring throwing another name on that list, whether it's Calvin Simpson-Hunt or maybe it's Lorenzo Styles or maybe it's someone else. But it feels like the guys who are there are all, game ready or potentially game ready within 15 practices.
I'd be fascinated to see what Calvin Simpson-Hunt could do if he had to start a game in spot duty, because like you said, he's a guy that a lot of people have confidence in, and that's only growing. And this spring will be huge to see what he can do. Lorenzo Styles Jr., the plan was to redshirt him last year. And my assumption is that that's what has happened. But Ohio State has him listed as playing like 6 games last year. And sometimes that gets faulty because of the double numbers and things like that, and some number switches. So I should have checked on this week with the Ohio State to see if they had like more information on that, but it just came to my mind when you mentioned him that I'm going to assume, I have to believe that they didn't just play him and then ruin the redshirt. I'm going to assume that he is redshirted. I just wanted to throw that out there to create some concern, basically, and to create some outrage if possible. But because I have had that brought up to me, like, hey, I thought you said he redshirted. He's played this many games. I'm like, hey, there's just no way to me that they would play him 6 games, because I think he played listed as playing 5, but I don't remember him playing in those 5. The bowl games don't count towards that. So, but yeah, this will be he was a June transfer last year. So this is going to be his first spring as a full-time corner. He was doing it a little bit at Notre Dame, switching back last spring from receiver to corner. So this will be an opportunity to really just be in it. And of course he did it in fall camp as well. But as Brian Day has said, we've talked about here how spring is a lot of just individual stuff and to grow the individual. Fall camp is about growing the team. So this is a really good opportunity for Lorenzo Styles to just focus on this. Not that he hasn't been before, but so with all of that in mind, there seems to be a battle to be that 4th corner, and 5th corner, because Jordan Hancock is one of the top 4 corners. So when you're talking about, gosh, who's going to be that 5th corner? Is it going to be Lorenzo Styles Jr.? Is it going to be Calvin Simpson Hunt? I won't even throw away, like, to dismiss Aaron Scott or Bryce West. It's unlikely, but Jermaine Matthews made a jump last year. I'm not unconvinced that Aaron Scott wouldn't be capable of doing the same, but the depth chart that you've got to get through is a lot deeper than it was a year ago at this time. So I don't know, of these guys who are looking to be that 5th guy, who among them has to have like the biggest spring, or is it somebody else who has to have the biggest spring among the corners? Who do you think has to have the biggest spring? Because I think the clock is ticking on Lorenzo Styles. Like, I'm not saying he needs to get moving. I'm saying he probably feels this clock ticking because he's gotten a later start.
Right. He's in the position where there's probably the most urgency just because he's used the most years. He's the farthest along in his career, and he really is coming in. He's almost, in some ways, like Lincoln Kienholz, where Lincoln Kienholz came in last summer and was just trying to get up to speed and was like very clearly not actually up to speed by the end of last year. And now now he's in for the spring, and now he can finally sort of start, really diving in and getting caught up and going through the full off-season workout. Lorenzo Styles has been through off-season college workout programs for years at Notre Dame, but now he's got to learn he's got to learn the position in a way that Lincoln Kienholz doesn't necessarily have to learn, from the basics, learn the quarterback position. Lorenzo Styles has been doing that obviously since last summer, but it is just, he is starting from much closer to square one, and he's much further along in his career than a lot of other folks. So that's why to me, I think he's maybe the most intriguing person in terms of what is he going to look like day 1? What is he going to look like day 15? It's him or Calvin Simpson Hunt, probably. Aaron Scott and Bryce West, I think, are both talented enough to potentially, if they were on the 2021 Ohio State team where Denzel Burke was a day 1 starter as a true freshman, I think there's a real possibility Aaron Scott or Bryce West might be able to earn a starting spot on that 2021 defense. But the 2021 defense is long gone. The cornerback room is a very, very different place than it was back then. That's a good thing. You don't really want to have true freshmen starting at corner because, even the guys who start at corner as true freshmen, you notice we haven't talked about J.R. Brown. He started as a true freshman at corner in September of 2022. He's now at LSU because he got jumped by a couple guys. So, you don't really want to be in that position. You're not probably truly ready to be in that position. Jeff Okudah, you mentioned earlier, what was the 3rd overall pick? He didn't really start until the Cotton Bowl game against USC, and that was because Denzel Ward he sat that game out. So he kind of got thrown in, and it was like, oh, look, it wasn't a disaster. Good for you. And that's someone who ended up being a top 5 pick, and that was the last game of the year. You don't want to have those true freshmen in there right now. And Ohio State right now is in a spot where, barring an absolute plague of injuries like they had a couple of years ago, you're probably in a spot where you shouldn't have to play those true freshmen until they're truly ready.
I'm very interested to see what happens at nickel and behind Jordan Hancock. And I'm not talking about the Sonny Styles version. We'll transition into that here as we get into the safeties. But you've got Miles Lockhart is coming in as a nickel. Bryce West has talked about maybe he would be a nickel. I do wonder who is that second nickel, true nickel behind Jordan Hancock, because I don't think we know who that is. And is that Lorenzo Styles? Like who is that guy? Who is that corner that is making that move? Is it Cedric Hawkins? Is it a safety that is coming in and it's going to be that guy, a redshirt freshman? I'm interested to find that out. Like, what does that depth chart look like? And then we'll kind of have a better idea. Do you want to take a stab? Do you want to take a guess at who I guess who would be the dime at that point, but not even the dime, because that could just be somebody different. But who do you think is the next guy behind Jordan Hancock as the passing nickel?
So I'm going to do this. We'll do this like the crystal ball where you put in your level of certainty from 1 to 10. And I'm going to put this in with a confidence level of 1, Tony. Let's go with Bryce West. Sure, why not? I don't know. I mean, it's just, we haven't seen these guys. You're moving into a new defense. You're learning a new position. You're also adjusting to life in college. That can go different ways for different guys. Could it be Miles Lockhart? Absolutely. Could it be Bryce West? Absolutely. Could it be a safety that they move? Absolutely. Sure. Could it be Sonny Styles? Sure. I mean, it could be lots of guys. I think that's one where I look at that and I have maybe one of the lowest confidence levels of any position on the field in terms of picking who's going to be the second guy there. Yeah, I don't know. We talked in the last show about your projected depth chart for the offensive line last year, and it was just like 7 names. Like this feels like one of the spots where, yeah, this could be 7 names, and we haven't seen really any of them in this position before.
And I just remembered the last spring going to the first practice and having so many different number changes. You're like, well, who is this guy? Because now Cam Martinez is now wearing this number, and who is this guy? And so there's probably going to be some of that as well. And we got to figure out first who is the guy, who is the number, what position is he playing. But confidence level of 1, Tom, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm just don't even bother. I don't even know why you bothered throwing in a crystal ball. That's just cowardly and a waste of everybody's time. Just FYI.
As opposed to our normal podcasting content, which is?
That's a confidence level of 7. That's much more sure of ourselves. Safety, Tom. Sonny Styles, let's talk about it. There's nothing else to talk about. Everybody else is just fantastic. You got Lathan Ransom, you got Caleb Downs. We all know that. We'll get to that. Sonny Styles, this decision-making process of moving positions, it is always, the final decision is up to the player. If they don't want to do it, it's not going to happen. Cade Stover, heading into the 2022 season or 2022 spring, was going to be a linebacker again. After the Rose Bowl, he was going to stay on defense. Instead, he decided playing time would be more available at tight end, ended up catching 36 passes in 2022, something to that effect, and now has an NFL future as a tight end. Chip Trainum came to Ohio State as a linebacker. They needed him at running back because of injuries. He was willing to make that move. The willingness has to be there. Sonny Styles has said last year he believes his future is at linebacker. Talking to Ryan Day, asked him about Sonny Styles. Well, they're going to have those conversations. Talk to James Laurinaitis, going to have those conversations. Talk to Matt Guerreri, safeties coach, going to have those conversations. These are things that are happening in real time, basically, as they discuss the future, the wants, what is best for the team, what is best for the player. There's a lot that goes into this, Tom, but I think it always comes back to playing time. And you said it on the last show. The number of snaps available for the starting will linebacker is greater than the number of snaps available to Sonny Styles as that nickel Sam in the defense that Ohio State plays, when Jordan Hancock was as good as he is last year, and you'd expect him to be that good or better this year.
Right. I think the path to the playing field at linebacker is just much more clear, just because you have Lathan Ransom back. You've got Caleb Downs back. We haven't talked about Malik Hartford yet. Malik Hartford probably would have been the next man up at that adjuster safety position. So, clearly the two bandit and adjuster positions are spoken for this year, barring injury. So then you've got Jordan Hancock, who's back. He did a fantastic job last year. I don't see any real reason that you would expect Sonny Styles to be able to just win that job outright. And they don't play three linebackers very often. So it just feels to me like it is a very natural move, and it would be probably in his best interest in terms of getting on the field for a lot of time. He is draft eligible after this year. Remember, he left high school a year early, so he is technically draft eligible after this year. I think it would be in his best interest to be in that battle for the will linebacker spot. And, James Laurinaitis wants to have four guys. Well, okay, he's got Cody Simon right now that he's kind of written in there in pen. Maybe CJ Hicks, maybe Gabe Powers. You put Sonny Styles in there, bing, bang, boom, you've got your four if those guys all come out of spring with the coaching staff feeling like they're ready. That just feels like a much more logical spot for him to go, because there's depth in that secondary and that safety room now that there just is not, he's not going to be able to play 65 snaps a game, 60 snaps a game in that secondary. And, maybe they don't want him to, but it just feels like that is just a much more logical fit for him and probably a better fit for the team.
You'd have to come up with some stuff if he stays as that nickel Sam, where both him and Jordan Hancock are on the field together, which means you've got to take somebody else off the field. So is that a defensive tackle? Is that a defensive end? Where is it a linebacker? And you find ways to get the same number of starts out of Sonny by playing him in multiple positions as you would playing him entirely at will. But do you get the most out of him in terms of how difficult is that for him to play these different things? And last year they didn't want to put too much on him. They're going to put more and more on him, but they need to be able to decide when too much is reached the point of this is too much. So you could, it's almost kind of like a 5-man rotation versus a 6-man rotation for starting pitchers in baseball. You get a 5-man rotation, you can maybe, back in the day, you could get 30, 32, 35 starts. 6-man rotation, you're talking like 25, 26 starts. It's not that much different, but now you've got more guys that are able to get those big numbers or get those reps. And I think you could do that piecemealing it. Like sometimes you're the Sam, sometimes you're the nickel, sometimes you're the will, sometimes you're the deep safety. But that's just like, you're asking me to play 4 or 5 positions. And I just think that's a lot. Certainly he can handle some of that, but does it put him in his best position to help the defense? I don't know. And if you're not doing that and he's only playing that Sam, that nickel, how many snaps is that a game? Is it 15? Because I could probably go back and actually just go ahead and bring up like last year's snap counts for him and see what the low watermark was as the season went on when Jordan Hancock is playing more. But that's also when Lathan Ransom was hurt. So Sonny Styles is playing deep safety. So we don't really necessarily know what those numbers are going to be because they found something they love with Jordan Hancock last year. So I don't know that we really necessarily know how much that's going to impact the playing time for Sonny Styles. His low water mark last year, Styles, was 24 snaps against Penn State. And so that was also one of the high water marks for Jordan Hancock, 69 snaps in that game, playing a lot of nickel. And so if that would be the typical game, and I don't think it would because we're talking low and high water marks here, but is Hancock getting 2/3 of the snaps and you're trying to, you've got 1/3 of those snaps going to Sonny. Do you try to find another 10 or 15 snaps from other people to get them up to like 45% of the snaps defensively? I think that could be one way you do it. I don't know how they're going to make it work. That's what they're all working on right now. Just going to be interesting to watch, fascinating to watch, frankly.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch. And I think one thing that's some interesting context there on the Penn State game being the low water mark for Sonny Styles in terms of numbers of snaps, the weekend after Penn State, that's when they went to Wisconsin, and that's when Lathan Ransom got hurt. He hurt his foot in that Wisconsin game, and then they were shorthanded for the rest of the season at that safety spot. So then he ended up playing that bandit safety spot, and he got more snaps after that, but how many of those were because they needed him to be playing bandit? And that I think is probably a big factor there. If Lathan Ransom's healthy, and he should be healthy going into the spring and obviously into the fall, then yeah, I think it's going to be hard. I think he's going to be someone who they're going to probably try to have at least somewhat cross-trained on certain stuff, because the wide receivers all want to know all the different wide receiver positions, so you're comfortable playing in all those. And the safeties learn each other's positions, and the linebackers learn each other's positions, and all of that. But, if they don't have an injury issue, if they don't have a significant injury where a crucial player is missing an extended period of time, yeah, I think you're better off trying to have him be your will linebacker. And, maybe he's sharing snaps with CJ Hicks there or something like that. You're going to have, there are going to be, even if you're playing fewer snaps per game, if you're not playing 65 snaps a game, you're playing 45 snaps a game, 50 snaps a game, you're potentially playing 3 extra games this year. You could be playing 16 games this year and that's even if you don't play in that first round of the playoff, you could play 16 games. It is going to be a lot more snaps for everyone and a lot more wear and tear on everyone. And I think moving him down to linebacker just makes a lot more sense to me.
They also have really good depth at safety in terms of what they normally have. Jihad Carter has starting experience at Syracuse. Malik Hartford now has starting experience. So you've got 5 deep safeties with starting experience if you want to throw Sonny Styles in there, because, as you said, he started the last 5 games or whatever. Anyway, that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Of course, always, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up, hit that bell to be notified on that video as well. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so on YouTube. We would appreciate that. And of course, subscribe to us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Check us out there as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.